Well, I think we can start it right now, Bu Wiwi. Well, hello to everyone and welcome to the second part of the lecture series on the evolutionary planning on capital habitat 2045. On behalf of the organizer, which is the collaboration of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University, Mars Architect, and ADB. I am pleased to inform you that today is the 10th lecture out of 13 series of lecture until the end of February 2025. This lecture is part of Planning and Design Competition on Nusantara, the new designated Indonesian capital. And the objective of the activity are twofold. The first is to equip all teams participate in the competition to get insights and ideas on many aspects of planning and design that related to the competition challenge. The second objective is to foster exchange of ideas in planning and promote stimulating discussion among students, planners, practitioners, and scientists in the disciplines and beyond. The topic of lecture for today is the key driver for resilience Nusantara. That will be delivered by Professor Riwandari Handayani, the head of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University, also the head of the Center for Urban and Regional Resilience Research of the university. She's already here together with us. Welcome to Prof. Wiwi. I believe it will be an interesting talk for all of us and enlighten us on how to operationalize the idea of resilience for Nusantara. I hope all of you can enjoy and spread this activity and opportunities to your colleagues and friends. I will allocate 45 minutes to Prof. Wiwi to present the topic and will be followed by a questions and answer session. And please post your question along the discussion in chat box if you have the question before the Q&A session begin. I will pick them up later during the question and answer sessions. Without further ado, I pass this to Prof. Wiwi. The screen and time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Paruko, for your nice introduction. And thank you for everybody who has joined the lecture series today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. And I'm happy to contribute some ideas today on IKN, focusing on the topic of resilience. Yeah. So I share my screen. I hope you can see the screen now. Is it
Yes,
already
yes,
there, Pak Ruko? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Hope to bring a more or a deeper discussion later on. I will try to give the presentation on three main part. The first part, I will talk in general about the concept of resilience. Then I will talk a little bit about the IKN. Then in the last part, I will share the idea on the key drivers in which I would like to highlight the concept of governance because I think despite the importance on innovation in terms of technical technology, innovation on addressing sustainability issues, but governance aspect is also important pillars. Yeah, and I would like to a bit talk a bit more on this aspect tonight from my place in Semarang, Indonesia. Yeah, let us start with the definition on resilience itself because I know some people consider resilience is not more than just a buzzword, just like a concept and broad concept. We never really have a clear understanding on how to bring the concept into the real implementation at the ground to address certain issues. But in general, when we talk about resilience here, is actually the ability or capacity to cope or to deal with disturbances, mostly in the context of environmental, ecological things. We divide resilience or we divide disturbances into shocks and stresses. Shocks where the disturbances coming, yeah, rarely, but when it comes, it create a lot of great loss, yeah. And when we talk about stresses, it's different types of disturbances. When we deal with this kind of disturbances, like in our daily basis. So, for example, for most people in big cities in Indonesia, traffic congestions becomes like a stress disturbances, defined or categorized as stress. But maybe for people who used to live in rural area or coming from, yeah, small city, when they, or maybe from somewhere, then suddenly come to Jakarta and find the traffic, and they will get shocked because they never really experienced that. So basically, resilience in the broader concept is just like the capacity uh, of a system. It could be individuals, it could be household, yeah, could be neighborhood, up to the broader level, cities, regions, how the system address certain disturbances, and the level of coping capacity can be divided into at least three levels. Yeah. So in the first, or in the very basic level, is we call as the ability to survive, when the system can continue to function when such interruption occurs. And after surviving comes into the level of adapting. Yeah, we call it as the adaptations, when the system try to make some adjustment. And the highest level of resilience is when we can be transformed, or we can grow better, in the sense that the system is transformed into a better new system. So, in resiliency, mostly in the context of sustainability, or climate change adaptations, we can closely relate the term into what we call as transformative adaptation. With this broader concept, I would like to bring the idea on resilience into IKN, ya, Nusantara. Other than the definition itself, I would like also to emphasize a little bit that when we talk about resilience, we talk about multidimensional and multi-sectoral aspects. So different discipline might also talk about resilience. Psychologists maybe talk about resilience. Engineers also talk about resilience. Even architects also talk about resilience. So as you can see from the diagram that I shared to you, uh, it includes, yeah, multidimensional, multisectoral, crossing social, technical, psychological, and physical. In a theoretical perspective, we mostly divide based on what Volker has this one the first one of the first researcher who highlight resilience in the perspective of environment, that when we talk about resiliency, we can divide into what we call as engineering resilience and socio-ecological resilience. And if engineering resilience only deal with single disturbances, meanwhile, when we talk about socio-ecological resilience, we talk about multi-equilibrium resilience. So for example, when we talk about flood as one disturbance, then when we do river normalization only, then we can call it as engineering resilience because we lead this situation into only a single equilibrium. Meanwhile, when we talk about socio-ecological resilience, we see the resiliency or the equilibrium into a more multidimensional level. So if you see here that resilience can be related to uh, multiple issues: climate change adaptations, disaster risk reduction, sustainability science, yeah, and also other hazards and risks. So actually, we expect that the concept of resilience is not only lead to the single equilibrium or so-called as engineering resilience, but also what we call as socio-ecological resilience. And with these ideas in mind, the expectation is not only to achieve what I've mentioned before, the lowest level of resilience, so-called as surviving, but it is an expectations that the resilience may achieve the highest level, yeah, grow better. So with the disturbances, then we can achieve the highest, or we can create the better version, yeah, because of the disturbances that we need to deal with. Um, in another perspective, we also can say that the concept of resiliency is on how to change our mindset from the reactive solution to the proactive solution. So we don't have to wait until the disturbance comes, but we have to anticipate since the beginning. So the proactive uh, way of thinking, it is like the first, yeah, the starters for moving from the adaptive towards transformative. So the the concept of the IKN itself. So I move into the second topic of mine today. When we talk about the Nusantara, um, aimed to become like a sustainable forest city, we can also, in the perspective of, or in the lens of resilience, we can see this as a transformative idea. We do not focus only in uh, thinking of the current issues, the reactive action to anticipate to deal with such this disturbance, but we also need to think Nusantara as a sustainable forest city, as a transformative idea to achieve what we call as the socio-ecological resilience. Uh, there are some important indicators when we would like to state Nusantara as a sustainable forest city. I highlight some of the indicators, such as when you think like Nusantara as a new capital, do not think like something like Jakarta or other big, yeah, capital in other countries, yeah, but actually 75% aim to be allocated as a green spaces, 65% protected areas, and 10% agriculturalized. That's something sometimes not really been understood a lot by people, because people think, okay, capital should be, like a big, dense urban fabric area, but actually, when we think Nusantara, we can also think a nice combination between the urban fabric with the nice greenery, with, yeah, the concept of or within the concept of sustainable forest city. In addition to that kind of imaginations, there's another important concept to be mentioned here, that the expectation of the Nusantara, as already mentioned in the master plan, is to be use at least 80% or more renewable energy sources. 10-minute city, which means highly walkable. Even though if you follow last week presentation by Pak Sibarani, he also criticized on how we can achieve this target based on the current situation. So I hope if some of you already register for the competition, you can think this as a challenge how to make this target become achievable in a way. I just also want to highlight a little bit about the vision for Nusantara Capital City, as already mentioned uh, in the master plan, designed to create a built environment with the integrated smart city system, harmoniously conflicting with the natural environment of Kalimantan. So they have the nine big move, as you see the noble certain noble values, how to promote or force the concept of sustainability and sustainable development. Forest city is one of it, and how to use the technology and create what we call as the smart city. And with this big move, it is an expectation that Nusantara can be formed as the transformative adaptation way, learn from the current urban growth pattern that has been there in many big cities in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and particularly also in Indonesia. We don't want really only move Jakarta to Kalimantan ideally, but we would like to create a more ideal city, uh, not only function as the capital, but also balancing with the needs of the concept of sustainability, create the transformative ideas, and in certain long-term period can also function as the new economic growth for Indonesia. That's the expectations with some key performance indicators. I will not explain this in my presentations tonight, but I do hope you are really aware on how do you think these key performance indicators are achievable, for us, or this the question is whether these indicators only be like utopia ideas, or this is really realistic to be achieved. That's another thing to be criticized for all of us, I think. We do hope we can achieve this, and that's why the competitions hopefully can bring an innovative idea to ensure that this not only like an indicators on the document, but how to really make this work on the real situations. I know Pak Neville is really experienced with the spongy city concept, so I highlight a little bit about this in my presentations tonight, that one of the leading concept for Nusantara is how to create what we call as the sponge city. And this is only one of the other ideal concept that already been mentioned in the master plan. But again, the questions is not only on how the sponge city concept can be fit into the Nusantara to become the forest city, but the question is how to bring the concept again to the real implementations, to make this really work, not only in the conceptual level. Uh, Another highlights that I would like to mention when we talk about IKN is how actually IKN is one of the subnational level in Indonesia that already have the carbon neutral strategy, what we call as Nusantara Net Zero strategy. So if we follow this scenario, they have three scenario: the business as usual, CM1 and CM2. I just want to highlight a little bit that actually, uh, we optimistically can achieve the carbon negative and the carbon neutral even before 2045. So again, yeah, the question is how we can bring this into the concrete roadmap to achieve what already mentioned in the net zero document. Yeah, based on a very rough ideas that I've mentioned about the concept of resilience and some highlighted indicators and also uh, concept and also the ongoing discourse, the ongoing issues when we talk about Nusantara. Again, the main important point to be further discussed is how we bring the resilience design into the real implementations, how we think about designing resilience, but also ensuring that the design is operational to address the real world or the disturbances, like I've mentioned before, how we think proactively, not reactively, and how we can create a practical application and support system uh, to make the idea operationalize. And my highlight is on the governance aspect. Yeah. So what I would like to talk after this slide is on how actually governance is the backbone to make the resilience design can be implemented. And I would like to focus on when we talk about governance, we need to talk about the decision making process based on policy, regulation, and financing. I would like to highlight a little bit about these two aspects as I uh, think this is main key drivers to achieve the socio-ecological resilience that I have mentioned in the earlier slide. So policy is indeed very critical. It is an important instrument to promote resilience in disaster risk reductions, to promote climate resilience, and policy also critical to examine the operationalization of resilience. Yeah. So we need to critically check the development plans and also relate that with the budget and also responsible agencies. In Indonesia, the Nusantara as the new capital already there in at least in the National Medium Term Development Plan 2020-2024. And in the coming week, I think the national government will launch the National Medium Term Development Plan for 2025 and 2029. And we can see now, we can see later on how the new, because we know we have the new government here, how they can sustain the commitment to bring Nusantara in the upcoming 5 years under this planning document 2025 to 2029. Other than that, there's actually already the Nusantara Capital City Policy under the law number 3 2022 stated that Jakarta is no longer fulfill its role as the national capital, even though now there's some adjustment because the location of the nation capital is a bit adjustment because of the new government the changes of the government already been in the process at the moment. And another important policy that we need to look further is our National Long-Term Development Plan 2025-2045. It is already stated in this long-term development plan that Nusantara act as the economic super hub. So the expectations in the policy perspective is maybe in the short and the mid term uh, to function Nusantara as the new capital for the administrative function, capital function, but for the long term, it is already stated policy wise, yeah, the commitment to become to function Nusantara as the new economic super hub. There is also maybe important for us to know that there's already some strategies and guideline for Nusantara and the blueprint for the smart city, for the biodiversity, for the smart building guideline, net zero, like I've mentioned before, even for the waste, yeah, smart waste management, and also how to achieve the Nusantara achieve the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So the instrument, the guideline, most of it is already there. Some of the uh, yeah, umbrella policy is already there. But now the question is how then we follow it up, yeah, to bring this not only act as the document, planning document, but not only function as the guideline, but how we can have a look more into the detail and how we can then make a more concrete uh, implementations from all those documents. Other than the policy, the guideline, I would like also to share about the climate change policy milestone in Indonesia, because I think this is also an important policy to create what we call as the resilience IKN, yeah, in the future. Uh, when we talk about the climate change related policy, actually in Indonesia, it already become an important attention since 1992 at least, and the policy differentiate on the mitigations and adaptations policy. And as you can see from the diagram here, I just also want to highlight a little bit when we talk about the importance of policy as the key driver for Nusantara is we need to have a look also on how the idea of climate change resilience has already been there in the mitigation, how to reduce the emission, how to achieve the carbon neutral before 2045, and also in terms of adaptation on how we can deal with or reduce risk and reduce loss, anticipate certain disaster, related disaster, mainly because of the climate change and also because of the human activities. Like you can imagine, there will be like, yeah, big transformation in Nusantara, right, from the forest to become like yeah, the city. So I think it's also important for me to highlight a little bit when we talk about climate change resilience for Nusantara means we need to think how to ensure that minimize emissions is important. Related to the mitigation policy is already been some, yeah, what we call as mitigation action, yeah, for at the national level, but also some policy related to climate adaptations. There's some, yeah, renewed NDC on adaptations, but there's already been updated, yeah, into the second NDC in 2024. Other than that, maybe it's also important for us to aware with some ministry regulations related to mitigations and adaptations. So the red line or the important part is, yeah, how then the policy itself can contribute to or can be understood by all the related stakeholders to ensure, yeah, that we can create yeah, the resilience Nusantara that we expect. So there's also another strategies to mainstream climate change mitigation and adaptations into development. There's some other documents like low carbon LCD, low carbon development, that created by the Bapenas, and also climate resilience development that could be used as one of the main policy to be looked at when we think about how to create uh, resilience Nusantara on the policy. Maybe it's an important document for you also to consider when we would like to design uh, yeah, resilience Nusantara based on the policy that already be provided by the Indonesian government as well. Uh, Other than policy, of course, finance is very important. Is when it doesn't matter if we have a good concept, ideas, perfect performance indicators that I've tried to explain a bit earlier in the earlier slide. But if we don't know how to finance, we don't know the budget, then it will only be there in the conceptual level. So of course, financing is the necessary resources to ensure the implementation and also the sustainability. And also, we need to scale resilience strategies effectively based on the financing, possible financing scheme, yeah, that we can provide to make the concept into implementation. So I think the other another key drivers that need to be understood other than the policy that already been provided is the innovative financial product. How we can think of the innovative financing being used, yeah, to fund such, yeah, innovative resilience project, such a climate adaptation project, and how when we think of some concept on the forest city for Nusantara, for example, how we can bring the idea based on some funding schemes, yeah, in the uh, master plan and also some other regulations on Nusantara. In it's already mentioned that uh, only 20% of the budget will be covered by the government. It is expected that at least 80% should be come from other funding resources, uh, public-private partnership, participation from different institutions, different parties, and then utilization of state property, of asset, yeah, rent, cooperation, BOT is another concept that already been mentioned on the document. Of course, foreign direct investment is very important, and blended financing like creative financing, crowdfunding, carbon trading, philanthropy is uh, another options to fulfill, yeah, or to bring the idea of Nusantara into a more realistic implementations. So I think other than thinking on, yeah, okay, we need to have a nice resilience concept, resilience design, but it is also important on the possible finance or funding schemes to make, yeah, the concept become works, yeah, up to the implementation level. And it's not easy, of course, for as the current government is still try to find investor and try to think of some creative funding, uh, other than in inviting investor, try to think of kind of private partnership schemes. But also lately we talk about uh, land value capture concept, something like that. So financing plus the policy or supported regulations is at the end of the day is very important and act as the backbone, yeah, when we talk about any, yeah, any concept, and for Nusantara I think it's extremely important because we know that we want to have a very uh, ideal objective or ideal ideas, but then yeah, we need to think on how we can take, yeah, opportunities to have like this large scale investment in Nusantara. I try to show some investment opportunity in Nusantara based on, yeah, the previous on report that already been shared, like the toll road, airport, yeah, the TOD concept, the smart city ecosystem development, low carbon energy related, yeah, and also including the ecotourism, wildlife safari. So there's various type of opportunities there, uh, and each will have their own characteristic in terms of funding. And I think this is also a, yeah, an idea that not really been elaborated in the previous lecture series that I would like to bring this to become one of our attention when we think about Nusantara. Uh, yeah, of course, competitive investment incentive have been set, yeah, for to ensure the IKN development, something like to ease of doing businesses or fiscal incentive. Some already been tried to be developed to, yeah, to a little bit force or speed up the Nusantara development. Like in Bahasa we call this BPHTB or Land and Building Acquisition Fee. 0% as the, yeah, as a way to ease of doing business in Nusantara, exemption of compensation fee, support provision of key housing requirement. This is some of uh, initial thought, yeah, to ease of doing business or to invite more people to attract people to do some business in Nusantara. In the fiscal incentive, there are also some ideas starting from the tax holiday for investor with the investment, and also luxury good tax, something like that, super deduction of tax, yeah, custom. And there's also some more actually studies or ideas how investment incentive is another topic, yeah, to be further elaborated when we think on, yeah, financing as one of the super important key driver for Nusantara or IKN development in the future. This is, I think, my last slide for tonight. I just want again to highlight, yeah, Nusantara has been planned and has also developed strategies to become resilient, has a very ideal, if I don't want to say like ambitious aims to become a sustainable and adaptive capital city. Uh, but we need to really careful how we think on the implementation of resilience for Nusantara. Uh, it should driven by robust supporting policies, and we need to carefully understand the policies, and it should be followed by the understanding on also the development on particular regulations. And at the end of the day, innovative financing mechanism is another key important drivers when we talk about, yeah, uh, resilience design for Nusantara. So I think with that, I would like to end my presentations, and I look forward to have more discussions with you all. Thank you very much, and I offer back to Pak Ruko as the moderator tonight. Please, Pak Ruko.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Wiwi, for your interesting presentations that cover from the basic and foundation of resilience as an idea, and then you highlight target visions of the Nusantara, including its key performance and some idea to create to support resilient for Nusantara. But then at the end, you highlight the two most important thing as a backbone for the design implementation is governance, which is you already share many important policy that are available in Nusantara, as well as the second part is financing, innovative financial product, and then the government is already provide investment incentive. So I think that is important for all the students who participate here in the competition to get clue from your presentations. Now I would like to open any questions from the participants here. Please just raise your hand and then you can open your camera and microphone to speak directly to Professor Wiwandari, or maybe you can write your questions in the chat box here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a question on the nature-based solution actually, maybe from Pak Neville, yeah, Pak Ruko, on the chat.
Oh, yes. Uh, I don't think so. It's not Neville.
Okay.
Uh, I'm
Yeah, it's
curious.
me.
Oh, it's you.
Not sure, but my name is Juno.
Okay, sorry, Neville. Okay. Yes, probably that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I think nature, I think, thank you, Pak Neville, to raise a topic on nature-based solution. I think nature-based solutions in Indonesian context is a little bit, or not really a little bit, but it's a like a tricky issues in a way because it is conceptually good, but it's not easy to make nature-based solution as a bankable project, for funding. And I think it is indeed, yeah, a great challenge, not only for the Nusantara context, but I think it is like a great challenge for us. The good news for mentioning nature-based solution is it becomes an attention from the government. So policy wise, uh, start to not only focus on like gray solutions, but also how to combine the gray with the blue and the green, and that kind of movement is already there. The idea and some initiative based on this concept is already there, but if we want to really make this work as part of the important program, particularly from the government, I think it won't be easy since, yeah, uh, it need to be uh, funded by, yeah, what we call as the bankable initiative. Yeah, I think that's still a challenge for even for not only for the government but also for all of the development players in Indonesia particularly. Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Wiwi. Maybe there is some other questions from the participants. While waiting for the question from participants, I think if we can remember again, uh, lecture series, the fifth lecture series from Pak Arif Rabik, I think it's also one type of nature-based solution practice. Uh, but I think the applications is like growing a bamboo forest and then involve the process with the industry, and then it can be promoted as part of the part of the material for construction, I think it will be one of idea, but how it can be transformed to situations such as in Nusantara is also a challenge. Okay, just my opinion
Yeah.
about that. But okay, is there any questions from the participant?
Yeah, there's another question also, but I would like to react to that also, Pak Neville and Pak Ruko. Yeah, my earlier response about nature-based solution is
Mm-hmm.
in regards to what I've mentioned in my presentation on policy and finance, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of concept or ideas, of course, yeah, this is a very important part, like already been mentioned by you, yeah, Pak Ruko, in one of our earlier lectures. And I think it is very open for us to, and for the participant who will join the competition to explore ideas on, yeah, these nature-based solutions. But again, it is also important not only to think about the idea itself, but on how we can to um, correlate these ideas, yeah, like the bamboo ones, and when you talk about the lectures
Mm-hmm.
before with, yeah, uh, uh, with the policy support, for example. And I think we need, yeah, a real uh, yeah, innovative initiative from outside, from not from government, I mean from
Mm-hmm.
uh, academia, and also from uh, local people who has local knowledge to have more understanding on on the area to develop these ideas, Pak. So maybe I will stop here,
Yes.
please.
Yes, agree. I think I agree with
Mhm.
your suggestions, probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I would like to continue, Pak. These questions. I think it's a
Oh
direct
yeah.
message, so you cannot see it. Yeah, there's a questions from Silvani asking about the worst case scenario if is that the relocation of Indonesian capital city is halted due to non-fulfillment of funds or investment obtained. Yeah. um Yeah, thank you for the question, Silvani. On the reality, I mean, I talk about the progress, yeah, when we talk about Nusantara, there's an idea what at the moment we call it as twin cities, yeah. So I think with all the government money that's already been invested for developing Nusantara, there's no option to retreat. Okay, there's no option to stop. So the maybe there will we need to be a bit slowing down the process, maybe, but meanwhile, parallelly, we can develop what we call as the twin city. So Jakarta maybe still act as the capital for certain function, but at the same time, we need also to functioning the Nusantara. And along the process, again, yeah, I think policy wise and also finance wise, we need to carefully look at that, Silvani. So I hope I address your questions correctly. Yeah. Mhm.
And there's also a comment from Pak Neville
Mhm.
in the chat box, yeah, about the bankability. Agree
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah. Thank
bankability
you,
as
Pak
well,
Neville.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Pak Neville. Of course, yeah, the ecosystem service, and then the concept of uh,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name in English at the moment. There's a lot of new mechanism on how yeah, uh, we can think of finance scheme from the environment, right? So not to let, maybe you can talk more also about this, Pak Neville, uh, to find option on how we we can
Payment for environmental service, you mean?
yeah,
Payment for
yeah, like
environmental service, yeah.
payment for the environmental service, and there's also
Mhm.
another, like for emission, for example. I forgot
Mhm.
the term in English, but the idea is on how we can calculate the emission and how we can create money from it, something like that. There's a lot of, yeah, not a lot, but there's several scheme on that, and I think there's another part that we can a bit more deep dive, yeah, Pak Neville. Mhm.
Maybe
Yeah.
this is a great topic to
Mhm.
revisit when ADB is doing their
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I hope the next session with ADB they can explore more about this part. Yeah. Yeah. Carbon credits. Thank you. That's the word that's the word that I try to find. Thank you, Pak Devil. Yeah, yeah, that's what I try to highlight a little bit for our tonight discussion on how we not, yeah, of course, yeah, Pak. We need to think all the concept innovation on design to address such technical things, but don't forget at the end of the day, then we need to also think how to make this idea comes into the reality. That's what I would like to highlight a little bit, actually. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, is there anyone else that would like to ask or put questions to Prof. Wiwi?
Yeah.
What times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before maybe there are more things uh uh to be discussed. I think when we talk about the resilience as a key drivers, yeah, another things that may be also important is on how we understand about the the locality, and I mean how then when we talk about the policy and regulation, how it can be fit with the local context is also another um, important areas that
Mhm.
not really further discussed so far, because as you know, when we talk about the policy, it seems like in the most situation we just think that's applied for, yeah, for the uh, whole nations, while in some certain situations there's important local context to be considered. So I think there's another thing that we need to explore more, Pak Ruko. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, there is one again. Questions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Social dimension and financial remains of Arif's presentations. Yes, this is lecture series number 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The problems is mostly when we talk about social dimension, we only talk a very micro scale case, and it's very difficult for us to think of, like scaling up the initiative or even replicate that to other areas. So we have so many case study or best practices, but I think how to leverage or how to scaling up is another challenge that we need to think about. Yeah, uh, Pak Neville. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Um,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in a new city planned from scratch by the government, there should be enough opportunity to raise funds, but I wonder if in the current climate it is really possible to kind of raise international or even global capital streams coming this way. I don't think it's as easy as it used to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, so I don't know, but I do hope that our design competitions in a way also can consider this part as well, yeah, Pak Neville. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not explicitly asked, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it will be somehow incorporated. I think it's very hard for participants to
Yeah,
approach a problem from so many dimensions, but maybe they can highlight the potential, the economic potential
Mm-hmm.
of a certain solution, of a certain site,
yeah,
that then becomes inspiration for maybe a new business case. I think that's
Yeah.
hopefully possible. Yeah,
yeah.
should be possible.
So it's ever adding value for those who can
Yeah.
reach that point as well. Although it's not compulsory, maybe.
Yeah. That's why we encourage multidiscipline teams, right,
Ah,
Pak?
that's
So
right. That's right. That's right.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think if there is no more questions, I believe that we already arrived to 8:30, 1 hours from the beginning. And then I think I would like to thank Prof. Vivi for all your presentations and for your insights tonight. And then we will come back again in February. We will start again on 11th of February with Hang Ovins from I think from the Netherlands to talk about Waterwoo's shaping spatial strategy, and then will be followed by Joris van Itten from Asian Development Bank that will talk about one aspect that already highlighted by Prof. Vivi about financing the livable cities. So I think it's more about how to finance a city. And then in the end of February, 25 of February, there will be Winimas that will talk about scenario-based planning and quantitative modeling. So I think these three will be very interesting as well and important for all of us, including for those participants in these competitions. Uh, at the end, thank you again, Prof. Wiwi, for your presentation, and thank you, Pak Neville, and everybody here that joined us tonight. And then hopefully we can see you again in February.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Pak Neville, Pak Roko. Thank you, everybody.